Hi, I'm Tom, and I'm back with another hobby video. In this one, I am converting up a World Eaters Praetor, or possibly a champion. I think I can use him as both, and another character with dual use, either a Herald or as a member of a command squad. The basis for the conversion of the Praetor/champion is the Age of Darkness Praetor with the power axe. I've not been very fond of him, but I had him lying around and I thought I could come up with something cool for him. My idea going into this was to give him a two-handed chain weapon of some kind, using the pose that he came with. I'm also going to do a head swap, as I do not like any of the heads that he came with. And to make him stand out a little bit more, a backpack swap. Maybe using the sort of trophy rack on there, as that fits the World Eaters theme. After snipping everything off the sprue to see what I have to work with, I decided to get rid of the loincloth that was on there, as it has the pistol holster and I don't want to be tied to that loadout. So that is the first modification, snipping that off. The second modification is to take off some of the ornamentation that he has on him, some of the gems, as I felt like that wasn't a very World Eaters thing to have on there. So simply just scraping off the gem and the bezel, making it flat. I did this on the legs and I believe a couple of other places, but left a single one in the collar. I'm using some bits here from the current 40k World Eaters Berserker kit, and it just so happens that this chain with trophies and a single corn symbol fits perfectly on there where I made the cut earlier. So I'm going to glue that on, and I'm going to leave the corn symbol on there. A high-ranking Praetor or champion, at least an officer, I feel like he could have a single sort of talisman. Maybe he doesn't even know what it means, or maybe it's just a large medal of some kind. So I think it's fine for him to have that. For the base, I opted to use the tactical rock that he comes with, as he has a bit of an awkward stance. I could fill it out with something of my own, but it was easier just to glue this on. Speaking of the base, I've opted to use a standard 32mm base, as I don't understand why he comes with a 40mm base. I've opted not to use all of the extra armor bits that this Praetor comes with. I've opted to only use one of the thigh tassets on the left hand side, as I am going to be doing something else on the right hand side in that spot. Also, you can attribute this to poor armor maintenance and battle damage. Maybe it's been shot or cut off in a previous engagement and he just haven't bothered replacing it. On the right hand side, I'm picking another bit from the 40k Berserker set, which is an empty pistol holster with some more chains and trophies. And it fits perfectly in that spot where the right hand thigh tasset would be. Now I'm not tied to one specific pistol, and at some point I'm probably gonna add a pistol to his base to symbolize the pistol that he has nail-biting rage dropped on the base, but still will be on the model. Let's be honest, WYSIWYG isn't as important as it used to be, so we will see what I end up doing with that. For now, he has an empty pistol holster. For the backpack, I am once again dipping into the 40k Berserker kit. Instead of the Mark 6 backpack, I'm going with one of these Anvilos pattern backpacks. I'm picking this one, which has a couple of trophies, which fit either a high-ranking officer at this point, or a champion, displaying all the duels that he's won. I just have to make a little bit of a modification, whitening the contact hole on the backpack to make it fit on the torso. I do really like the sort of trophy rack on the backpack as it comes. There's a bit of debate if I want the eagle still, but I'm gonna cut it off and see if I can mount it on there and make it make sense. Here's a bit of a test fit. There's a bit of a conflict of the different trophies. Maybe I can make it work, but for now it can brew in the back of my mind while I keep on working, as I am committed to using this backpack. Now on to one of the fun parts of the build, the weapons. I want to swap the big giant axe for a big giant chain weapon. Unfortunately, while assembling this, I dropped a drop of plastic cement onto this two-handed chainsword, and it is a little bit deformed. I'll use that for something else and cover it up with loads of gore, so I believe that's easily salvageable. That leaves me with these options: excoriated chain axe from the Rampager kit, Corn Berserker kit, or this weird big unique chain weapon from the Tartarus Terminator Praetor from the Night Lords that I did a video on converting him into a World Eater's Praetor in Tartarus armor. I'll link it somewhere. The cool thing about this is that it fits almost perfectly with some modifications as a swap of the power weapon that he comes with. So I think I'm gonna go with this one. I don't really need the back part of it, I just need the front end of it. The really cool thing about this is that it's a chain weapon which fits the theme of my World Eaters, and it's also quite unique, so I can quite comfortably call it a Paragon weapon, whether it be a champion or a Praetor wielding it. Mind you, a Paragon weapon is not just a power weapon, it is a unique and powerful relic weapon, or mastercrafted weapon, so it can be anything really. This is always the time that is the most critical, trying to figure out where to make the cuts as to not ruin the pieces that you're going to use for the conversion. So I did a lot of sort of dry fitting and measuring to figure out exactly where to make the cuts for the hands. And here we go. First I need to cut off the hand to get the pose. And before making the cut on the resin part, I just quickly checking the position. And here we go. Now the thickness of the grip and handle is not quite the same, but I believe I can fix this with some green stuff or just in the painting process. There's nothing saying that you can't have a variable thickness grip. Maybe that's his preference as a skilled fighter. And off with the rest of the handle for the bottom part of the axe. This is sort of a one-to-one swap, as you can see. It wasn't as difficult as you might imagine. It's just about being brave and trying to make those cuts. Of course, we're gonna go with the arms that he comes with, as we know that they're gonna fit the posing. Now we just have the challenge of getting the angles right, because they're now 3 individual bits, the axe, instead of one solid part. So to better help myself here, I'm gonna glue on the arms to get those anchor points that I can then match the hand positions and the axe tilt to. I'm gonna let the glue set quite a bit here so that I have a stable base, but not fully in case I need to twist it slightly to alter an angle. So while the glue on the arms is setting a little bit, I'm gonna take it over to Past Tom with some of the live considerations going on in my mind as I am converting this. There's a lot of things that I'm undecided on, such as shoulder pads, helmet options, and iron halo options. So let's hear what he has to say as I'm going through this process. I was thinking about head options. Having a bare head, such as these Forgeworld ones from the Rampagers, or any of the myriad of plastic ones, would be kind of cool to get some expression in there. But I also kind of want to have the Kaderi bunny ears in there. I like this one. This was a candidate, or this is a candidate still, I haven't decided. Because it's very simple. and has a lot of Karen vibes to it, which, I mean, could be sort of an officer version of the Kaderi bunny ears. But then I also thought of this one. Seems to be the unit champion from the new Khorne Berserker box. He also has that mark, and it's a bit more ornate and imposing. The only problem with these is fixable, but the cabling around the head and this giant collar, they sort of interfere a little bit, but I just have to shave down the cabling a little bit. I think this looks pretty cool. I also think this looks pretty cool. Yeah, this was actually also a candidate, sort of a Mark IV-ish version with the bunny ears. I really like this one, but I don't think it will be for this character. But I have a bunch of the old Forge World Khorne Berserker resin upgrade sets, and I do think this solves some of the issues. Alright, hopefully that's in focus. So what I like about this one is that it is still a helmeted head and the bunny ears to give him a little bit more presence. There's a lot of expression because the front part of the helmet is ripped off, so that's kind of cool. So we still get the expression and the helmet. Of course, this doesn't help you if you have a bolt around coming for your forehead, but I'll address that in a second. Not that World Eaters are thinking about that at this point. Also, yeah, there are some small horns here. I was thinking maybe I should snip those off and sand them down, but they're so tiny. It's early mutations, and this is mid-late heresy. This is definitely when they are crusading with the word bearers, so tiny corruptions I think would be okay, especially for a high-ranking member, as sort of the first ones to go. So this fits better in this little socket of this giant collar. So I think I'm gonna go with this one, but like I said, I haven't decided fully because there's some other nice helmets, also some nice unhelmeted versions. I'm afraid to look at them because I think I'll be tempted, but I do think I want the bunny ears on this guy. Speaking of being shot in the head, the cool thing about, if it's a Praetor anyway, then he has a iron halo. So I did snip off this bit of the backpack, but it looks pretty cool if I glue it on there. But the skulls also sort of collide. It'll be hard to show on camera while keeping it in focus. If I position this properly, this and this skull and this skull would be interfering a little bit, but it's not a problem. I can fix it, but this just sort of overlap and shadow and might not look as good as it could. But there's also this one, sort of a attachment onto a backpack that comes in this set. And I think this could very well be an iron halo. And also there's the Khorne symbol, but I think it's okay for a few select ones in my army. You can do as many as you want in your army. My army is not all the way there yet. These little hints of the Khorne worshipping parts of the Legion sprinkled throughout, I think will be just fine. And the last thing I thought about is this other shoulder pad. I'm going for a bit of a gladiatorial look. For this guy, I do like these little rondels. They're very reminiscent of old Roman legionary style ornamentation. I also do like the chainmail on this guy. So it all adds to the vibe, and I've chosen this type of shoulder pad with the icon on it from the new Berserker kit. It's actually quite good for this sort of stuff. And to go with that gladiatorial vibe, I've gone with one of these, I'm calling them mini cataphracti shoulder pads. It's not what they are, but I think it's very gladiatorial if he gets that on the other arm. It's a bit hard to show without any glue, especially on camera while keeping it in focus. So that's pretty cool. I would need to green stuff this little hole for a tab on the original shoulder pad. I thought it looked a little bit bare, so I have an idea. So since I've been stripping some of my old models from my 40k version of the World Eater's army, I accidentally broke some of the shoulder pads in that process. So for instance, this is a Mark IV shoulder pad. I could put sort of the pieces on here so that it's been battle damaged, but for whatever reason he wants to retain that out of maybe some kind of honor duel that he won this off of someone, or just that it works, but he wanted a tech marine to fix him up and they put on one of these extra things on top. So I would have the shoulder pad underneath. I also have this Mark III shoulder pad, which I think would look very cool. I need to snip off some more of the top, but it will be just fine. I basically accepted that these broken ones would just end up being basing material at some point, but might actually find a use for one here. So I'm gonna stop talking now. I'm gonna glue the hands on, as I said, and then I'm gonna fiddle around with this whole thing, and all the while, probably not until the end, I'm gonna figure out a head or helmet option for this guy. And we're back from the live rambling. Here I'm gonna glue on the hands, and just like the arms, I'm just gonna let it set a little bit, but still work on it while it is pliable, in case I need to tilt some angles or rotate some wrists. Mostly talking about the right hand. Here I'm using the original power axe just to check the alignment of the wrist on the right hand. And here we have our first look at the new weapon on there. There's a bit of a gap that needs to be filled and a bit of stuff that needs scraping, but it's minor stuff at this point and we will definitely get there. So while the wrist sets a little bit, I'm back to the plan of the shoulder, using that Mark III shoulder I was talking about. Here I cut it a little bit and snapped it to give it a more authentic break line, I suppose. With as heavily damaged as the shoulder blade is, I thought it would be weird that it had such a clean silhouette on the lower half. So I deliberately decided to make a couple of snips just to break it up and make it read more as damaged. And here we go. I really like how this shoulder turned out, and I also like the weapon. It's still a little bit crooked, but I will fix that, I believe, off camera, but we're mostly there. Almost no gaps left, and I just need to fill it with some liquid green stuff. Still undecided on the head at this point, but now it's easier to test out some posing when sort of the main model is nearly complete. I like all of these options, that's really the problem. And I even asked my Discord to help me out when I was building this, as I was sharing work in progress pictures as I was going through the decisions. So I appreciate the feedback that people gave on that. Here are even more options that I haven't considered before. Yay! I think there are merits to almost all of them. Back to the Iron Halo conundrum. I actually dug up a third option, which is really cool. This is from the Chaos Vehicles sprue, I believe, and I had a bunch of these. This is pretty much a perfect Iron Halo sort of grim dark vibe. So for a brief moment, that was actually the prime candidate. I decided that I wouldn't use the one that came with the Praetor, as I already had a decent amount of skulls on there. This corn symbol, which I ended up going with, it was a little bit too busy, and those hanging skulls also interfered a little bit with the skulls on the backpack, so I'm snipping those off. Also to make the outline a little bit cleaner and more of that pointed star, which I know is chaos, but also so it reads a little bit more like a Iron Halo. This will also make him easier to find in a battlefield filled with white, blue, red, and chain weapons. As I was sitting there converting up this character, I was simply too inspired and I needed to make another model. So I wanted a Herald or just a banner bearer of a command squad for my legion. So I had this chaplain model from the betrayal at Calth, but he had previously been converted, so I just used the body as a base for that. I had several different banners, but I picked this plain one from, I believe, the old 5th edition Space Marine command squad set that you could buy. It has this eagle top thingy, and I wanted to replace that with something more appropriate. And I had this Chaos Space Marine standard bearer arm, so with minimal tweaks I can just make that shoulder fit into the pre-molded shoulder pad. And for the other arm, I'm gonna go with a Power Fist, as the banner bearer would pretty much be the last one to die in the squad, so I think a heavy weapon on him would be good. I'm not doing this because it's what is fitting for 3rd edition. It just so happens to be fitting for 3rd edition, but it at least makes him usable. I was debating which Power Fist to use and what pose I'm gonna go with. One of these is from the Raptors, and some of these are ironically from the Tartarus Terminator Power Fists. I could make lots of jokes about that, but yeah. We're past the legacies now. If you want a good chuckle though, go read the Tartarus Siege Squad lore and then look at their options. And pay attention to Power Fists. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up. Alright, enough salt. Let's get on with the conversion. I'm also gonna get rid of these purity seals on the banner, as I don't think they're too appropriate. It's just a bit of scraping and then some more scraping and just shaping the plastic into the shape that I want. Here we go again with the head. Lots of good options. This is from the old Berserker kit. I really like this one. And here you can see that I've swapped out the top of the banner pole as well. I did end up going with one of the Tartarus arms, as I felt like that had a menacing vibe, like he was slowly marching forward, getting ready to punch someone. So just a couple of snips here, leaving the cable. I can use that as a bit of extra detail going up into his armpit area-ish. And now it's just about getting him glued up with the parts that I'm sure of. And for the head, I opted to go with one of the ones I rejected from the Praetor. This one that I thought looked reminiscent of Karn, and yeah, I just liked it. He looks menacing, he has a purpose, he's walking forward, showing the banner, and getting ready to punch someone in the face who dares stand before him. Here we go, here are the final ones. Spoiler alert, I didn't actually pick any of the heads that I talked about for the Praetor. I found another one from the Forge World Resin upgrade set, and this one filled the criteria that I was talking about with the other one, in that it still has the bunny ears, but it still has the expression, because a part of the helmet has been blown away, so you can see the marine inside of it, the armor, and I thought that was very cool. I'm not gonna spend too much time on the painting of these characters, as I will at some point make a painting tutorial for how I do my world eaters. But it was quite fun to paint these guys, as it was a little bit different from the usual guy with a chain axe. Bigger guy with bigger chain axe and guy with banner and cape. In the end, it was quite an easy conversion. Most of the parts just came from the 40k Berserker kit and the Age of Darkness Praetor, with a few bits and bobs here and there. So if you're up for it, give it a try. Of course there's the axe, but using the same technique as I did, you can swap it to pretty much any weapon, I think. Saran even did a nice one with his word bearers, swapping this out to a mace instead. So in the grand scheme of things, I've only recently started to do transfers on my models, which is an ongoing project for both my legions at this point. But I've never thrown any of them out, so I have quite a big collection to pull from. So here I'm just trying to pick some stuff with the Roman numeral 12 and some World Eaters iconography as the main motif of the banner. I decided for the main part of it to not use the modern stuff, but to use this retro World Eaters icon, as I thought that was very characterful to have on there. And towards the end you'll see that I've used those a couple of other places too. I also wanted some Legion command iconography on there, and the skull is the symbol for that. Skull and laurels if you want to. And here I'm trying to pick out some skulls from some different transfer sheets, so to give that command authority symbol on there. There's a lot of cool stuff to go with, and actually this old Imperial Guard transfer sheet had some really cool stuff on there, especially some of this stuff that looks written by hand. So just the old microsol and microset treatment here. You can see on my little prepared list here, I have Mortis Extremis from that Imperial Guard transfer sheet. I thought that was very fitting for World Leaders to have that as a sort of slogan on there. And off camera, I also decided to add some of these runic symbols, probably scribbled by a madman in the Fits of Rage. Maybe they're Nagrakali symbols, I don't quite know, but it gives a nice contrast from this original Legion standard that's then been sort of graffitied up. But back to painting at this point after everything is dry, and like I said, I will get into how I paint my stuff in another video at some point, hopefully not too far in the future. And that is really it for these two guys. Once they get their blood splatter on top of the weathering, and then just some basing done to match the rest of the army. The power weapon, I do have a tutorial out on how I do that. It's a little bit dated. The information is still solid in there. It's just, I guess I can make the quality a bit better as it is now, but I'm not in any hurry to redo that. I'll have it linked somewhere. And here we are. I am quite happy with both of these guys. Also, if you've been following along with my World Leaders project as a whole, I've painted up these two Land Raider Proteus for the Force. I'm not gonna be doing any video of that, but like with the Praetor, I've been showing off the work in progress on the Discord, which will also be linked somewhere. With these guys, I have another couple of great options to use for my World Leaders. I can now run a command squad, and I also have a generic power armored Praetor, so that's just very flexible. I already had sort of a champion slash centurion, so I didn't really need another one, except if I ever want to run multiple champions. I guess that could be fun. Yeah, it's just nice with more HQ options, really. You can never go wrong with that. It really adds some spice and some character to the overall force. Sometimes they even inspire the force itself and how you want to run it and theme it. Anyway, thank you for watching if you've stuck around until now. I'll be back with more hobby content as soon as I get some time to edit stuff. There's also a 2.0 battle report still in the editing room. All motivation for gaming Heresy at the moment is kind of dead, but I'll still be making videos on my units and my conversions, and in the future probably also games. What version that will be, I have no idea. Anyway, thank you for watching. Cheers.